Some noise.
No.
There is some noise.
Yeah.
There is some interference.
So can you hear me? No.
Mm-mm. There is some interference.
Okay. So let me try one more time.
Something wrong with the microphone or something? You sabotaging my Amharic music, man.
من اللي انت
This is about Mother Ethiopia, man. It shows you your talent, it shows you your camels, it
I was
shows
listening to
you.
music very well. Well, it didn't work. No,
No, it was working, but there was some interference, some noise coming in the middle.
no problem. No, that was a beautiful song that you selected. I appreciate it. It was beautiful, everything that we've seen. So today's topic, basically, first of all, welcome. And how are you doing? You are under the
Uh,
weather.
the-
What are you feeling
yeah, I was
better?
under the weather these 2 3 days, but I'm getting better now. Thanks God. So I'm fine. I'm fine. How about you?
Ah,
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm
You
good.
look motivated,
Okay.
man. You're running this Dove
Yeah, we
TV
are. We are.
2 3 times a day now. I see that. Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
only
There
Mondays.
was
Only
no coffee.
Mondays.
Okay. That's
We're
good.
not
That's
going to stop
great.
until we recruit a lot of people, and we get a lot of positive feedback.
Okay.
So we are trying to see how we can have a diverse views, because we get used to it only hearing one side. So and I'm glad that we have
That's
this
basic.
conversation
That's
every
good.
week. So
Yeah.
what's new for
Yeah.
this week in Ethiopia?
Well, everything is new day in Ethiopia. There is always surprising issues, but there's no much other than last week. Um, both the government and the TPLF declared cessation of hostilities, not declaration as such, but the TPLF leader wrote a letter to the Secretary General that they are committed to start the negotiation, and um, following that, the Ethiopian government also said the military to stop where they are, not advancing towards Tigray and something like that. But the from the start of this conflict until now, what you see is on both sides is some sort of media consumption that is not from their hearts, not from their um, uh, mind. That's the problem. Both sides, what you are hearing is not something that are aligned with the truth. Number one, the TPLF didn't withdraw from the both in the south and the north side from the Amhara and Tigray, let alone withdrawing from all places. The hostilities, the firings, and the war, the conflicts, they continued to go to Afar and uh, fight with the Afar militias. Um, they went to the western part of the country, even through the Sudanese border, trying to start a new front against Wolkite and in the northern part, North Gondar. Salamt area also they started a new front. So whatever you hear it from news, uh, letters to the international community is nothing than an empty talk. It's not from the bottom of the heart, but still people are dying. Still areas are being controlled by the TPLF in North Wallo and North Gondar areas. So it's what it is. There was a fight we heard from the closer to the Sudanese border, to the new front, and from the Ethiopian side, we didn't hear it from the government, but the news outlets, there was a heavy loss was encountered by the TPLF side. And they went as far as Sudan and trying to recruit as many people as possible to fight along with them. And there is still mobilization of troops on every front. And peace and negotiation is far away from what we are expecting, brother. So that's where we are now.
So, in terms of the government saying that there should be no more fighting and everything has to stop where we are, where the military are, I've seen competing press releases. That one that came from the PP Amhara region, saying that we're not going to stop all the way. How do we interpret that, and how can we? Because the whole time what we are doing is we are reading in between lines. What's going on? We have two competing messages.
Yeah, you're right. That is the core of and unfortunate situations that we have been witnessing since the start of the conflict with the TPLF. The federal governments, the regional governments, as you said, it's Amhara, regional government and others. They are governing under one governing party, and they are responsible for the federal government, both of them and others too. There is no coherent and uniform approach to this conflict. That's the problem. The sticking point is the Wolkite and the Raya area, these contested territories. On the Hamara side, they truly believe that, and it is fact, these places were taken by TPLF even before they became rulers of the country, before 1991. They controlled these areas by force. There was no referendum, there was no negotiation, nothing. These territories were taken, and when they won the government by force and established a constitution in 1995, they annexed these areas under Tigray. And people never believe that they are Tigrayans. There are people who speak Tigrinya in those areas, but prior to the TPLF, they were the Wolkite area and Alamt area was under North Gondar, and which is now part of Amara region. Raya area was under North Wallo, which is now under Amara region. So there were people that was fighting since the very beginning, but their voice was slammed by force, and many people were already left the country, fled the country. Some of the very prominent people were also massacred, killed, and prosecuted in a manner that you cannot believe it. So what happened is when this conflict started, as you remember it, especially from the Walkaiti area, before, as soon as the conflict started with TPLF, the TPLF regime massacred about 1,500 innocent Amharas who are living in Maikadra, which is in Walkaiti area, and left. And they went, some of them went to Sudan, some of them flee to whatever they want. And that happened before the Amhara forces entered the city. And this was already proven by Amnesty International as well, not only by the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, but there is a dispute on numbers, the number of people who were massacred, but this massacre was orchestrated intentionally by the Tigrayan forces, and it was already approved by Amnesty International as well. As I said, there is a dispute on the number of people massacred. So now, after that very horrible situation, the Amara militias and forces occupied that area. The Tigrayans, who used to live there peacefully, are still living there. They used to live before even they took it. The Tigrayans took it because that area is very in the juncture of Eritrea, Sudan, the Amhara, and the Tigrayans. And everybody was living and doing business in that area peacefully for centuries, during Haile Selassie time, during that time. Nobody asks who you are from. The problem started when the TPLF controls that area and says it's only me, and the Tigrinya is going to be the official language of the people, and you have to be ruled by us. And they start to discriminate the local people who are speaking Amharic and others. That's the problem has started. It's sad that that happened living in one country, that we are fighting for a piece of land. But that is according to the constitution they created a boundary between regions. And now when their purpose was to make Amhara territories landlocked, and not only landlocked, but it won't have any access to foreign countries. With Sudan, South Sudan, they made the belt line starting from Metama and down to the south to Gambela and Oromia region. If you go to that way, Amhara region is not connected to any of these regions after TPLF came. Before, the Benshangul Gumus, Matakar was under Gojam, which is Amhara region now. They created a new region and separated it from Gojam and created a new region. Okay? That makes you inaccessible to any region out of your area. So that was intentionally done to suffocate the Amharas and squash them and make them weaker and not have access to any foreign country. So it was a deliberate drama, Yasin, that people need to understand. But Amara did not have any representatives back then. So they took it by power, and now the people are back to their ancestral lands and they reclaim their place. That's the sticking point now. On this issue, there is a difference opinions between the international community's approach, between PP members themselves' approach, that they are not in line with the pain of the Amharas. That's the reason. That's one reason. The other reason that you mentioned is the Amhara regional state, yes, they said, they didn't say that we have to go to Tigray, but what they said is, we don't sleep or we don't quit fighting until the TPLF regime is incapacitated to not to reinvade Amharas or any other national state, Afar or Somalia or federal government. So that should be the federal government's role to play, honestly. But it's
Okay.
very amazing when you have different regions and one regions have a tank and heavy armament and conquers you and compete with the federal government, and the federal government is unable to stop it. So it is embarrassment for the federal government, but the Amaras
Yeah, we are
say,
in a serious dilemma. That was a good background of what has transpired before, and what has happened now. But the current situation right now, as we in, both whether the Amhara regional administration likes it or not, the federal government says that we are not going to go continue this war. There's a flare-ups in different areas, and we know, you and I, we knew this from the beginning, that the government were not ready to go to peace negotiation at this time, because of as long as it was when the TPLF was holding and occupying the Amhara regional areas. We know what the Americans and the West wanted from the get-go. They wanted the war to stop. TPLF need to withdraw. There should be peace negotiation. They were saying numerous times that stuff. And
yeah,
as late as last week, the special envoy for the U.S. government was saying it, that the U.S. policy is aligned with this either quote unquote withdrawal or the defeat, whoever that you need to ask this question.
yeah,
What is now for real is that there should be some kind of peace and negotiation. There should be some kind of negotiation. And the government that the Prime Minister Abiy leads had come up and said that we will start a national dialogue. Okay, what kind of national dialogue are we talking about? And can this government lead any kind of peace and reconciliation in Ethiopia? Your thoughts?
um, yeah. This is a good question. Yes, the government already announced it that they are creating a commission, some sort of 11 person or individuals commission to start the national dialogue. But even on this national dialogue, what is the purpose of this national dialogue? Who are going to be participating on this national dialogue? And who are going to be the commission members of this dialogue? Are they going to be appointed by the government? Or are they going to be individuals who are neutral and not politically or ethnically biased towards one group or the other, who can be balanced, and their interest is only the national interest of Ethiopia and the people of Ethiopia and nothing else. Uh, so those things are still on debates. I have seen when the ruling party has already invited some of the opposition parties members to involve and give a feedback. It's not still a done deal. It seems that they are willing to uh, absorb or include some of the comments that they are hearing now. But the same thing that you asked me before, different opinions, different roadmap between the Amara regional state and the federal government. Even here, if you ask somebody who is from the foreign minister, he will tell you something different than somebody who is in a peace minister or the prime minister's office spokesperson, something like that. They don't have any coherent and roadmap. That's the problem. And when one of the minister data of the foreign minister Redouan Hussein was asked about this national dialogue. He said the terrorist organizations like TPLF and Onag Sheni are not going to be participating in this type of dialogue. No, he said. The others said there could be possibility, and the others say yes, they will. So there is no.
So the question is, who
Yeah.
who are they going to negotiate? If the war is between TPLF and the federal government, and let's just say even the Amhara region, so what kind of dialogue, how the dialogue is going to, so either you have to win the whole war and you take over Tigrinya and arrest all the leaders for TPLF, which I think is not possible, or you either say that there's a peace, because it's not possible, because the prime minister's office say that we will not go to war anymore. We've got to stop where we are, and we're going to go to the peace negotiations, and that's what the international community wants it. So the confusion is that without the TPLF, they negotiate. What are we negotiating about? What is the national dialogue is all about? I know there's a conflict for everywhere. So the only other remedy that I'm seeing is that, okay, the national dialogue is TBLF will be, Tigrinya will be another country, and then everybody else is talking about Ethiopia, and we are talking about the constitution, change of the constitution, conflicts among us, and how we're going to live together. So either TPLF is part of TPLF is part of the opposition and the ones that are in war, or they are not. So no one, and the government already withdraw all its military from Tigray. So it is utterly irresponsible what I'm hearing, and confusing at least. And this, at best, it's going to destroy the country.
Yeah, that's why, if you don't have coherent national agenda and roadmap, how you resolve conflicts, how you lead the country, when you have engaging in a war, what is the purpose of the war? What are you fighting for? What to achieve you are fighting for? And this is a problem that we are facing now. There is nothing that's clearly portrayed to the Ethiopian people. I don't think that, leave alone the Ethiopian people, I don't think that the cabinet members have the same information that the prime minister has. That is a leadership, the type of leadership that we are witnessing every single day now. If you ask some of the cabinet members, if you ask one person the same issue and ask different person the same issue tomorrow, you'll have different answers. That tells you that there is no plan of action that is planned by the government or by the ruling party. That's a big problem for this country. Yes, you're right. If you don't negotiate with your enemies, you don't negotiate with your friends. Your friends are your friends. You talk to them and work together. That's it. But you have as adversaries, enemies in a sense that you have political opponents. That's where you have to start negotiating with them. And what do you want? What do I want? What's common? What's the disagreement? How we can coexist, or how can we resolve this problem? And that is the problem we are seeing. This conflict, what they say is the national dialogue has nothing to do with the issue of the TPLF or this war. That's what I heard saying. They said even the spokesperson for the foreign minister said in a meeting in Bahar Dar, this is about what are the problems for the Ethiopian administration and people that put us to that gets us here now fighting one another. What is the root cause? We try to find out through the national dialogue. That's what he said. But one parliament member was asking question. They gave 3 years for this national dialogue. They proposed 3 years, lifetime. But the conflict of, and another was the parliamentarian was asking, 3 years is not enough. It has to be 5 years, probably the term of the parliament. So these people they don't understand. Every day, people are dying. Every day, the economy is sinking. Every day, the country is tearing apart. And they don't feel it. They don't feel it, the urgency of stopping the bloodshed of the country. They don't feel it. Maybe they have to go to the war front. Each one of them has to go and fight and see it themselves. Then they will realize how stopping
At least
the
in
bloodshed.
the parliament is debating. So at least, but Somali region, I haven't seen any parliamentary meeting or anybody discussing about the current Ethiopian crisis, and they are entertaining themselves with unnecessary propagandas. So you're right. The thing what makes everything sadder is, and I've seen it. There will be a meeting that's going to be happening, I think, in Afar area very soon for the prime minister is organizing, and that will be something that they will consider the Afar region an heroic region because since they defend the national interests of Ethiopia by defeating the TPLF. But in the Somali region, is completely different scenario. What's going on in the Oromia region? There's a war between the ONEG and the government, and it's not stable. So if and by the way, the Afar Somali region conflict, there's a lot of people from Somalis who are displaced, and I've talked about it a lot in the show. So there's conflict everywhere. But
recently,
no, that they came like a few hundred came out a few days ago. So over the last 6 months, there is at least thousands who are displaced and still are not going back to where their own homes. And the government and the UN and no one is calling them as refugees. And we have a video evidences that we already displayed. But my concern, even though I'm not undermining that, I'm looking at the bigger picture. My concern about what's happening in Ethiopia and how dysfunctional everything is that one region is not aware of what's happening on the other region. And the national dialogue right now that everybody is talking about, what is it about? No defined question. They say that we'll give mandate to 11 to 12 people. But what if the recommendation of those 12 people that they present, and will the government accept if they say that this is the way forward that we are thinking? Can we talk about a transitional government? Or the government that led to this is still going to be in charge? To me, whether it's Abiy his intention or not, when I look at the person, the prime minister, I bought everything he was selling from the beginning. But everything was burning at the same time. There was war continuously between ethnic groups. Okay, we right now engage in a completely different war that was preventable, in my opinion, and we shouldn't have done this. If you look at it, so you could see the signs of the war. First year of the prime minister, the second year he changed the money. and the money was from one of the uh, my, my internal information, or my colleagues or people that were in the government bluntly told me that they were changing the money because they want to choke the TBLF leadership.
Because
Those guys,
I think that they are hiding money in the mattress. Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
and they cut off everything. So right now we millions of Ethiopians from different areas, especially in the Tigray and Amhara region, are hundreds of thousands that died, millions are displaced, starvation is the highest, and we're not. When we say in the national dialogue, we're not even saying that okay, what's happening is wrong. How can we stop this bloodshed? The goal for the dialogue has to be how can we live together peacefully, and what is the best avenue, and no conditions should be put to place, especially government that fail to stop this war, or win this war, because neither way, I don't think the Ethiopian military won this war, and I don't think Abiy's government to win this war, and this is gonna hunt them for generations to come. But for people like us, some people ask me, why are we speaking about this? Because we are talking to the government. At the same time, we are seeing the public opinion, where they are. It's time for those of us who have influence to start speaking and and confronting this, saying there is a better way out for this, and that's one of the reasons. So, in order for me to put a question on this, is can we trust this government to bring peace in Ethiopia and reconciliation?
Well, yes, Ian, we need to see, in my opinion, on both sides, on the TPLF side, and the Abiy government side. The question of trust comes from both sides for me. Uh, all the problems that we are facing now has been rooted in Ethiopia since TPLF came into power. That's obvious.
That's fact, yeah.
That's fact. The corruption. I wouldn't mind if he changed the money or the currency even before. Well, I was advocating that, by the way, because we know that these people were printing money, and with Samsonites, each of their cousins, brothers, sisters were handed out, and that bankrupted the country. That I don't have any remorse on that. They should have been accountable, more accountable, and faster accountable, uh, even before. But the problem of this Abiy government is they are not really going after those people who made a damage to the people and to the nation. He will wake up only if his throne or city is going to be shaken. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If you try to shake his authority, then he will beat you hard. As long as you are not a threat to his throne, it's okay to do anything, including people's killing. Every single day in the Oromia region of Walaga, 50, 30, 40 people are still dying. Every day, Amaras are dying. Every single day. It is continuing. Nobody is paying attention because people are focusing on more hot issues and problems than the killings of 50, 40 people. It becomes normal now. And nobody, after the destruction of Zawai, Shashamane, and that area, if you remember, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, those towns were burned, churches were burned, even mosques were burned. Business were burned. Who there was a defense forces 2-3 miles away from the city. They were saying that they don't get order to take any action. The Oromia special force was there. They were they did nothing to protect it. It was done 24 hours. And what was the response? Who took that responsibility? Is there any responsibility? Is there any high official who was president of the Oromia state, or the police chief, or security chief? Were they sacked down? Were they accountable? No. That's why it's continuing. That's one thing that is worried me now for my country and my people is the nature and the character of this government is so confusing. They talk nice words. They talk about Ethiopian unity. They talk prosperity, development. They show you some demonstrations how to be wealthy. But some few miles from them, the poor people are dying and they don't care. That's what's bothering us now.
Yeah, can
That's
this
why,
so they
yeah,
cannot your opinion?
this government showed us for the last 3 years, they're not going to bring peace and security for the nation. The same thing to you, Yasin. You and me have been communicating for so long. And I was so much positive when Abiy came into power. When Mr. Lamau, who is an Oromo president and an Oromo guy, Mahara, I never say that I loved Lama first 3 months. It didn't last more than 3 months though. When I went to my country after 18 years, first time I went for a vacation after they came into power. When I went to the Amhara region, I see their pictures everywhere in taxis.
Yeah.
You see the picture of Lama. You see the picture of Abiy. These people are not Amhara, but these Amhara loved them and they will die for them. Now, if you show the face of Lama or Abiy or an Amhara 5 years old, I don't think you would like to see their faces, because
I hear that they throw the TV whenever they see the prime minister's picture. They throw shoes on the TV. That's what I hear.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So,
but let me.
They tarnish their opportunity. They tarnish their opportunity. I feel sorry for them, honestly. It's not only Amaras. It's all Ethiopia-loving, peace-loving countries. People, regardless of what ethnic group, including Oromos, including even Tigrayans. You remember how Abiy was speaking to the Tigrayans in Mekelle? How the Mekelle people were just chanting about him, how he loved, they show love to him, but it didn't last long for everyone.
He lost a lot of prime opportunity. Yeah. And not only the locals, not only the international community, not only the all the armed liberation fronts that went back, and the UN and everyone, they will. He was, to be frank with you, the African savior. We're talking about the past tense when we say that. You just remind me what had took place in Moyale, where the Somalis and the Afar Libolis, Somalis and Oromo Libolis fought, and there was a lot of killings, heavy loss for the Oromos, and the Libolis, the head of the Libolis Somali region was sacked in the Somali region. So that was that's you can say that's an accountability, and others might say that what happened when the Oromos were killing us, that did not happen to the leader of the Oromo police. So and that unfair and double standard and unfairness and all that. But in a nutshell, we are on the last 15 minutes of the program. In a nutshell, I just try to recap. The government, the war is quote unquote stopped, but still going. There's no war that stopped. The prime minister and the Amhara regional president are speaking different language administrationally. But one thing that's clear, the international community wants peace and reconciliation in Ethiopia. How that does look like, and the Ethiopian government announced there's a national dialogue. What kind of national dialogue, or is this a time buying tactic? That because I'm a political economist, you are in this business for too long. We understand. We can read in the tea leaves wherever it's going, but at the same time, we can warn our brother Abiy and his government that there is a way out. There is a way out. So, what's the way out on your end? Then I'll add mine.
Well, to be honest with you, the way out is to be ready to live power, including living power, honestly, if that's needed for the country. That means the government has to reassess, and those who are in the government need to talk and really, if the cabinet sits down and assesses what's going on in the country and ask questions, why is this happening under their watch? Why they couldn't stop it? Why is Ethiopia having a diplomatic problem with the West and the international community? Whose fault is that? Why we are here? I think they will get the answer. And for that, instead of beating the drum against the West, beating the drum against the international community, beating the drum against everybody who is fighting against the government, they have to reassess what's wrong they did get Ethiopia in this place. The diplomatic arena is the most important part, because one of the hindrances for the peace talk is the mistrust of the international community.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the peace brokers going to be? The government doesn't trust the US. They don't trust the European Union. They don't trust the United Nations. The only body they trust is African Union, which is, unfortunately, the African Union is not out of the influence of the West.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, they are not too. So they need to understand the world order, and they have to make peace with the West. They're telling us that Abiy and the Ethiopian government are the nationalistic government. They don't want to be like Wayane, trying to do what the West is asking us to do, or something like that. Oh my dear. We're not free until you are economically capable of feeding yourself. Number one. Number two, every country has a national interest. Yes, that's permanent. The national interest is permanent, but they don't have permanent friend or enemy. That's what it is. They need to negotiate with them what they want from Ethiopia, what they want from the Abiy administration, why they feel that they are threatened, what makes them uncomfortable. Is it because Abiy is so nationalist, blah, blah? No, that's not. There are other issues that we trying to touch in the last hour of our discussion.
Yeah, so in terms of a way out, in terms of concrete advice, to the government. You saying
We
it
need to
that
get along with the West.
there has to be a leadership that you have to examine
That's capable
everything.
of, yeah, capable of negotiating with the West, with the international, get harmony, create harmony with the international community. Ethiopia is the first African nation which created the League of Nations. Ethiopia is a founding member of the League of Nations before the United Nations. And we have the history of being trusted and having a good relationship with every country. Yes, that doesn't mean that there was no betrayal, there was no, that's normal. Diplomatic clashes, disagreements happen between countries every time. But
Yeah.
this time, it's not
So
the best interest of Ethiopians to be out of the Western sphere. I don't think so. I don't advise. I don't think you should. What's your opinion? You tell me, I see it, because I don't
okay.
see it because
My opinion, I'll tell you my opinion, because
yeah,
for right now we are in a very difficult situation in Ethiopia.
yeah,
What we need is not only that you just hit the nail when you say that the prime minister should not be even, he has to think even leaving his position for the sake of
yeah,
the country,
yeah,
since and the leadership that who's around him need to and willing to say, okay, you know what, Mr. Prime Minister, if we cannot make we are in this mess because of you, and we need a new blood. That is given. But if he's willing to stay and get out of this mess, then he has to look the reality of the ground. Number one, and decide if Tigranians are Ethiopians or not. That question has to be answered. If they are, and if he can win this war between Tigrayans and between TPLF and then and what he called the law and order thing, then he has to do that and finish the job. If he cannot finish the job of winning the war, then he has to admit and start negotiating it. There is no if and buts. It's either he wins the war and then he does lead this country whichever way direction he wants it, or he cannot win the war, then he has to come up peace and reconciliation, which means that having a transitional government, which means that a true genuine dialogue, which means that whoever that, then the third thing is that the committee that's been selected, the committee that's been selected, that and the selection should not come from the government by itself, but all the different stakeholders. Then those committees has to be independent of government's influence, and whatever decision and direction that they take has to be something that he and the government of Ethiopia respects it, and there shouldn't be not more than 2 to 3 months of this peace and reconciliation timeline, is not open ending 2 months, 3, 6 months, a year, 5 years. None of that can work. It has to be a short term, quick fix. Then I say that, okay, this is our findings, this is what we are presenting to the Ethiopians, this is the recommendation that we are given. So as you said, Ethiopians are capable of doing that. So that's my thoughts and your opinion.
yeah, yeah. But this is a good point. But when we say winning the war, um, there are different approach of winning the war. One could be uh, disarmament of the TPLF through negotiation, even without going further to the bloodshed to win it. To me, as a federal government, the Ethiopian government has constitutional responsibility to have a monopoly of power according to the constitution. Whether we like it or not, even the existing constitution doesn't give you authority for states or regional governments to have tanks, artillery, BMs, Z-23, and heavy armament. You cannot have that. You can only have police structure for internal peace. That's it. That's what their constitution says. And the first thing that the Ethiopian government should present to the international community is, look, we have insurgency by one of our states against the federal government and against the people of Ethiopia. They are having tanks, heavy weapons, missiles, and others, and trying to be a threat to their neighbors, to their neighboring states, Amhara, Afar, and even the federal government, and trying to overthrow the federal government by force, which is illegal according to the constitution. The TPLF is...
The TPLF commit a lot of bad things in the past.
Yes, they committed bad things. Yes, they need to surrender, and that's what I always say. There must be a peaceful resolution of this issue. But if peace has to be lasting, each party has to trust each other, number one. If there is no trust in the short term, intermediaries and the third party, which is the international community, be it the UN or countries or the African Union, whichever it is, they need to give a guarantee for every party. Once they are the demilitarization is done by the Tigrayan forces, they're not going to have to be a revenge or anything else.
Yeah, I agree, but this is
going to be respected.
We are on the last 4 minutes.
That, and otherwise, as long as the TPLF militarization continues, as long as they compete in terms of the military power with the federal government, peace will never come. So
yes,
this is my advice to the government.
Okay,
yes.
so they have to. And my advice to the government right now is similar, but my thing is that through negotiation, disarmament and everything could happen. Through negotiation, and third-party trust can be built. But without communication, if the solution is a young man has to die, nobody is going to win, because grievance will have more people to go to the bushes and start fighting, and we have to break this circle, a vicious circle that is keep on passing generation to generation and creating more victims. So I advocate dialogue, and I urge the government of Ethiopia and the TPLF and any individual who have interest in peace and stability in Ethiopia to advocate peace and a dialogue. And Atnavu, I'll give you the last word, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Yasin. My last word is for my Tigrayan brothers and sisters. I can understand and I can feel it. The desperate situation in terms of accessibility to humanitarian needs, including food and other stuff, when this war is going on now. And the other things that through negotiations that we can achieve is, once the Tigrayan forces, the TPLF, is disarmed, is willing through negotiation, there could be witnesses of there is a mistrust. Let's not forget that. There is mistrust now. If we disarm, some group of people will come and attack us. Eritrea will come and attack us. Amara will come and attack us. Even if it doesn't happen, there is a fear that's created through propaganda already in the minds of the people. To forge that, let the UN or the African Union Army, like we are using the international peacekeeping forces in Sudan, in other parts, let them sit down in the selected areas of the Tigray region while the Ethiopian forces are doing their business. If they do it in an unprofessional way, they will report to the UN or other parties and they will take action. But that can be a short-term solution until we get used to it. But which is not acceptable is one state having heavy armament that's competing with the federal government and being a threat to its neighbors is not acceptable. It's not good for the Tigrayan people. There must be a flow of goods and services. The banks has to start, the utilities, the water and electricity has to resume. In order to do that, the federal government has to be there. The employees of the government has to be there. In order the federal government to do this function, there must be peace and security and trust. And unless we think this way, and if you're saying that the only guarantee we have is our armed army, and this is not going to get you anywhere because you are competing with 100 million people. And you could say that doesn't matter, but it matters. It matters. You cannot have surrounded by your enemy and try to survive. God knows how many people are perished so far. So we don't want any further bloodshed in any way. So let's pray for peace. That's my message.
Thank you, Aknafu, and I concur your message to the TPLF and the Tigrayan people. Ethiopia is not your enemy, but let's just find a solution to that. I'll try to play that song again, Aknafu, and let's just enjoy it.
Without interference now.
Okay.
Thank you.